A little bit of background on me and the Future Forum. I spent the last few years at Slack leading our platform team. Before that, at Google, I ran Google Express. I've been the CEO of startup companies along the way, but across my 2 decades leading and building teams and companies, I learned, often the hard way, that culture eats strategy. I think the challenges people face in today's environment are actually a huge opportunity to question decades of orthodoxy about 9-to-5 office-centric work culture, and to transform, to reimagine culture and norms, and to leverage modern tools and technology to make our teams better, more productive, more agile, and more aligned. Future Forum is a consortium backed by Slack. We're dedicated to helping companies thrive in a digital-first world. To start, we're focused on insights like the research I'll be sharing with you today here, and events like not only today's executive track, but more importantly, the breakout sessions, opportunities for executives to come together in small groups in confidential discussions to share your challenges and to find what other people are doing to solve them. We've all seen the headlines. They tell all the stories. Now, they're all true, but they don't tell a complete story. In less than a week in mid-March, companies made more massive change than many thought was possible. These changes were possible, though, because of underlying shifts in technology, broadband access, VPN, and SaaS tools. But most companies simply did a lift and shift of office-based practices onto video calls, both the good practices and the bad. We wanted to understand better how the shift to remote was impacting knowledge workers around the globe. How has it changed people's expectations of work? What groups are doing better and who's struggling? And perhaps most importantly, what practices, policies, and tools can we provide to make work better for everybody? So we surveyed over 9,000 knowledge workers around the globe, US, UK, France, Germany, Japan, and Australia, to see what was working back in July. We're going to do this every quarter, by the way. The top benefits are what we all see: the reduced commute, better work-life balance, and saving a little bit of money. The top challenges: Wi-Fi connectivity, which actually cuts across income levels. But importantly, maintaining relationships. We'll come back to this a few times. The sense of belonging in your team, the social capital that we need to build at work. Last, definitely not least, staying focused. We see this for a lot of individual team members that are grappling with work demands combined with very new and very challenging home environments. But you also see it in middle managers and others who are struggling with staying on top of the workload and understanding what's going on and being able to effectively communicate with their teams. Even so, the change that we see opened people's eyes to new potential for rethinking work and home in the balance. It's also a chance to rethink where work gets done. Only 12% of the people we surveyed want to return to the office full-time 5 days a week. But only 16% want to work remotely 5 days a week and never come into an office. The vast majority of us want flexibility. We want to work in a hybrid environment where we can work from home much more often, but leverage physical space together when it's needed. People's expectations have changed. For leading companies, this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to tap into more distributed teams with flexible work schedules. It's an opportunity to tap broader talent and more diverse talent pools. Those that don't risk losing out to those that do. But we wanted to go one layer deeper to understand what's working and what's not. So we asked the 4,700 remote workers who were working fully remote in July whether key aspects of their work was better or worse than when they're in the office. Nearly 3 times the number of people told us that their work-life balance in remote work was better than it was in the office. Not too surprising. Over twice as many, though, said that their work-related stress was lower while working remote. Think about the environment we're all operating in and what that says. Our study, along with lots of others, showed that productivity improved for more people than it declined. But when you get to belonging, things get more challenging. More people are struggling with belonging, with connections with their peers and their coworkers, than those that are doing better. Still, overall, more than twice as many people felt that working remotely was more satisfying to them than the office-based environment they came from. We want to go deeper than that too, though, to understand more about the people in that worst category and what we can do to help them. So we built the Remote Employee Experience Index. We took each of those 5 elements that I walked you through and scored each of them on a scale from much better, somewhat better, about the same, a little bit worse, and a lot worse, comparing remote with being in the office. The highest possible score of plus 100 would indicate that all remote knowledge workers felt that all of those dimensions were much better. Negative 100 means that everything's worse for everybody. What this allows us to do is compare results across different groups, different demographics, different countries, and importantly, across different practices and policies. So let's get into where the differences showed up the most. We started by looking at how the shift has impacted people from diverse backgrounds. We know that diverse teams build better products, but today's challenges are often greater for people of color and for women with children. At a time when our Black coworkers are challenged on many fronts, they're often not feeling as supported at work as their white colleagues. Our survey showed that Black employees are far less likely to agree that they feel supported by their manager, treated fairly at work, or that they can count on their coworkers. We should all be concerned about results like these. They show that the racial inequities we're seeing in the news are playing out in people's experiences day to day at work. So we went a little deeper. How has the remote work experience impacted these groups? It turns out Black knowledge workers have a higher overall index score for remote work than their white colleagues. The most dramatic difference was in that sense of belonging, where Black employees felt a higher sense of belonging. They felt better working remote, while white employees on average were negative. This demands a lot greater exploration. Why is it that remote work is helping level the experience? Have white employees always felt more of a sense of belonging in a majority white workplace? The norms of digital workplaces, of digital headquarters, have yet to be written. This is a real opportunity to start over. We also wanted to look at gender, and particularly at people with children. We often talk about parents with children and the impacts that they're seeing. I'm a proud father myself, but our data tells a far more specific story. In the United States, it's women with children who are far more impacted. Their work-life balance, productivity, and work situation satisfaction are all far lower than men with children. And this is a phenomenon that's far worse in the US than it is in the other countries that we studied. Women with children outside the US look a lot like men with children in the United States. Some combination of the lack of childcare infrastructure and cultural norms is at work here. Companies are being asked to respond. They're being asked to respond either with support or with more flexible work schedules. Both of these issues are critical. Diverse teams yield better results. And in the US, over the next decade, 62% of new employees will be women and 72% will be non-white. Another group that stood out as far more challenged are middle managers. Middle managers are struggling far more than individual contributors and more than senior executives. They're struggling with a sense of belonging, with productivity, and with their work arrangements. Middle managers are caught. Senior executives have their networks, individual contributors have their peers, but middle managers often haven't built their networks yet. More importantly, middle managers are buckling under the weight of outdated management techniques. They're pulled between scientific management on one side and measuring productivity, and empowerment focused on outcomes on the other. One of the biggest concerns that came out of the survey from middle managers who are struggling was time spent tracking other people's workloads and ensuring they know what needs to be done. If you're a middle manager in that situation, what do? You call a status meeting. But it turns out that's one of the worst things you can do. One of the biggest negative impacts on belonging in our survey was status meetings. People who have regular meetings to discuss status of work score twice as poorly on sense of belonging. Teams who move status checks to digital channels, their sense of belonging was positive. Not necessarily just because of that, that's because they also reserve team time for deeper problem solving and for social activities together, social team bonding. Making all of that work, moving status checks to digital channels and creating social cohesion remotely through digital tools relies on modern tool sets. You're all here because you're leaders in that space. Luckily, people who work at early adopters of technology also scored positively on belonging. Last, definitely not least, that 9-to-5 schedule full of meetings and always on behavior together was never the right solution for many people. And that's far more true in the pandemic. Companies that provide flexible work schedules see better results for their teams. For individuals, it not only improves their work-life balance and reduces their stress, it nearly doubles their productivity score and turns that sense of belonging negative into a neutral. Flexibility to work asynchronous on deeper work, then come together as a team yields better results. We've just started our journey as Futureform. We believe that distributed teams with flexible schedules help you tap broader, more diverse talent pools. We believe that the current environment creates massive opportunity to rethink how people, process, and place come together to build better teams, how digital headquarters help you build competitive advantage.